Welcome back. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 240. After a week of some technical difficulties, and we apologize for those, to be honest, I would take accountability for my fault, and I would have no problem throwing the folks at Blue Duck under the bus if it were their fault. But instead, like most issues with America these days, it was some nameless, faceless mega corporation that should have been broken down by our antitrust laws we used to have once upon a time. Thanks a lot, Reagan. Instead, it's some giant conglomerate that controls our cell phones, our TVs, our internet, all of it. They're like, we'll get to your block when we can get to it. The block was having issues, it was, but I don't know what buttons the Blue Duck people pushed to get it a tech, not even on site necessarily for this space at Trentage in Harlem, but to fix the internet for the block. So the great people of this community kind of have the What's Right show to thank for the internet finally working back up here. However, Damonza, funny story. So they did, after working on the block throughout the day, they did need a tech to come into the store to, do like double and triple checks or whatever.
Right.
And I am just going to tell you how it went, and then you can guess how your wonderful mother reacted. So, the Trentage is supposed to close at 7. I call Danielle, and I'm like, hey, there's going to be a Spectrum. Oh, darn it. Gosh darn it. Maybe it's not that company. Who knows? There's going to be a person from a company coming to fix some things. He's going to get there around 6, and I can come up and relieve you and sit there. She's like, no, it's no problem. Like, I'll ask him how long it should take when he gets here. So he gets there. He said, oh, I should be done before 7. Like when you're supposed to close. She's like, oh, it's no problem. So then at 7:20, I get the side-eye emoji text. I'm like, uh-oh. So I call her. She doesn't answer. So I call the store. And I'm like, I called your phone. She's like, yeah, I can't use my phone because the guy who's here working's using my phone because he doesn't have FaceTime. So he has to FaceTime on my phone and this. He's using his phone on phone. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'm already a little anxious about how this is going to go. And I'm like, do you want me to come up right now? And I hear her say, sir, about how much longer? And he's like, oh, less than 10 minutes. So she's like, no, it's less than 10 minutes. This is 7:20-ish. When I tell you, Damonza, I get a phone call at 8:15, FaceTime, and it's her sitting there looking at me with this guy behind her working on some things. And again, this is no one's fault, but I want to let everyone know, Damonza, whose fault do you think your mom thought it was? Of all the people she could...
I
Go
assume
ahead.
it was you.
Yeah, me. It was me. It was my fault. It's not Victor's fault. It's not even the poor tech guy's fault who's trying to help us out. I don't blame him at all. It was not Blue. It was no one's fault. I'm telling you right now. And so Victor, because he's a great guy, texts me and says, hey, I'd love to buy you and your wife dinner. Sorry about that. And I text him, I'm like, man, don't worry about that. And so your mom at that point is home. And I'm like, man, and again, it's as if I ripped the internet cords and then locked her in the boutique. Like it is
how
all
did
my fault.
she spin that on you?
I mean, I'm just an easy target, man. And so I then say to her, I'm like, hey, Victor, offered to buy us dinner. She's like, yeah, he texted me too. I'm like, what'd you say? She's like, I didn't respond. He doesn't need to buy me dinner. You need to buy me dinner. This is your fault. I'm like, okay. So, but bright side is podcast working great. The internet's crystal clear. I'm moving my arms around. I'm doing stuff. There about 2 months ago, I got the note. I'm like, hey, they told me, hey, the internet gets shakier if you move. And I'm like, well, then we might have an issue. Like, if the internet connection is reliant on me staying still, I'm not going to be able to. Also, that kind of feels like when I had when once upon a time when your mom and I first started dating, and I bought old Cadillac cash from a guy I played poker with because, if I'm being honest, your mom wrecked my other car. And then your mom wrecked the Cadillac, but not fully. And I had to drive to work. I don't know if you were old enough to remember this, with the bumper tied to the like body of the car via like sailor's rope. And I'm like, well, this is not a sustainable model, but for the time being, it's gonna work. Okay. I was about 6 months. I drove in, and that the rope I used was like electric yellow because it was the only rope I could find the day of the event. And I'm like, well, I'll either get this fixed or change out the rope at some point because it looks extra ridiculous. And when I'm here to tell you that electric yellow was on that car until it was finally left on the side of the road one day. I mean, it just is what it is. All right, here's what missed the cut. Not on today's show. Wimby gets a Funko Pop doll. A lot of people love those things. I don't really get it. That's fine, though. Scottie Scheffler's charges are dropped because, of course, they are. And we were last week when we had the technical difficulties supposed to have a whole conversation about policing in America. And at some point, we're going to have that conversation, but I'm in too good of a mood right now, and I don't want to do it. So we're not going to do it today. And Aaron Rodgers. That's so funny that the producers made this what missed the cut. Aaron Rodgers' video of him seemingly hobbling around and looking at his other Achilles. That's not the Achilles he tore. That's the other Achilles. The question they put in there, something or definitely nothing. That is literally the question on the TV show today that we just agreed upon in our meeting. Aaron Rodgers' video, something or nothing. I think Gabe used his editorial influence to have definitely put in there, oh, it's something. When the 40-year-old quarterback, it's like, wait, my other Achilles is bothering me? And they're like, no, it's a blister. All right, Damonza, let's get to the actual show. I don't think he's trolling. I think he's an old, injured man. But go ahead.
All right, no faith. All right, Minnesota survives. History tells us that no team has ever come back from 3-0. That doesn't mean that Minnesota can't wear the Dallas Mavericks down a little bit for the Celtics and make them easy pickings.
Yep.
So with that said, do you think Luka and the Mavericks get it done tonight?
Well, I do. I think you make this is the exact right question to ask. Because I think this series is incredibly evenly matched. I think that all 4 games, either team could have won, which is why I'm so confident that this isn't going to be the first time in NBA history a team blows a 3-0 lead. Because people have tried to make the argument like, well, all these games came down in the last minute. These 2 teams are dead even. But that's not an argument for one team then winning 4 in a row. You know what I mean? The argument for a team coming back from 3-0 is the one we almost saw last year when it was Celtics Heat. When you think the Celtics clearly have more talent, the Heat are playing over their skis, and then, eventually water will find its level. And that is what happened in that series. It went from 3-0 to a Game 7. 2 evenly matched teams, the Mavs will get it done in my opinion, in one of the next 2 games. But the right question is, are they going to be worn down? Worn down, no, because the finals don't start until June 6th. But a turned ankle, or a re-aggravation of the knee sprain, or something as fluky as Derek Lively getting clocked in the back of the head, and a neck sprain, even though that neck sprain sure looked like a concussion. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I was just watching on TV, but that looked like a concussion. But whatever, I'm not making any allegations. I'm just saying from my couch it looked like a concussion. That's the concern. That is the concern. And so if the Mavs win tonight and get through fully healthy, then I actually think for their finals purposes, that loss in Game 4 was good for them in this regard. I think that a week off is plenty of time, and that 9-10 days off can maybe be a little, like, almost too much. I also think a sneaky important part for the Mavericks is Maxi Kleber getting ramped back up after being out with he had, Damonza, the injury you had in your shoulder. He had the AC joint, the dislocation, collarbone thing, right? And so he's been out a month because of it. He didn't have the surgery. It's like we had talked about when it happened with you. And him being able to get 12 minutes in game 4 and now maybe 15 minutes tonight, like that to me is a minor concern for Boston. Is Boston made such quick work of Indiana, even though those games, and we'll talk more about that later, they didn't get the opportunity to let Kristaps get game action in, you know what I mean, in less than the NBA Finals cauldron. And so now it is nice that they didn't have to risk any other injury and they get the rest. I get all that.
Before either. I assume.
No.
Like he's not used to being at this point in the postseason.
Kristaps had never been to round 2 before.
Right.
Kristaps was with the Knicks and then got hurt, was with the Mavs and was in round 1, and then the next year when they were in round 1 got hurt, and then he was with the Wizards, you know, so Kristaps has never had a real postseason run. And so that is, I want to make sure I'm right about that. I'm almost certain I am. But he's obviously never been to the finals. But I don't think prior to this year he's ever played in a playoff game. Yeah, I'm right. In fact, including this year, he's still never played in a non-round 1 playoff game. Because the last game he played in was the game 4 against Miami this year. And so, yeah. So in that regard, I don't think that Mavs losing in game 1 or game 4, was bad. I also think you were kind of, I know this is illogical, but it is how I look at sports, kind of due for a bad game. And I know that doesn't mean you're not going to have a bad game moving ahead, but if they had just won game 4 and it's like, man, you win back-to-back games against OKC, you then sweep Minnesota, are you going to have your cold shooting, bad game, things are off in game 1 or game 2 of the finals? So maybe it resets that a bit. I know, again, that is not really sound logic, but it makes sense in my brain. However, another 48 minutes of basketball is another 48 minutes where somebody can get dinged, where somebody can get hurt. And so it's not without cost. What I will say is the Mavs need Kyrie Irving to be able to, and maybe with the day between games in the finals, it'll help him. They need A-level Kyrie Irving. What we've had throughout these playoffs is A-level Kyrie Irving for spurts, for quarters, or for halves, not many times for entire games. They are going to need that for entire games against elite defense. And one other piece, they're going to need Kyrie Irving to maintain his disposition that he has had this entire postseason in what will be a very difficult environment for him. Those Boston fans are brutal on everyone, but they really hate him. Now, he did a lot of that to himself. He flipped him off and he stomped on Lucky. So I'm not going to... I think it's almost... There's going to be some improper jeers sent his way out of Boston. Nobody does that to himself. But the extra vitriol that he's going to deal with, I hope Kyrie can keep his disposition. Because obviously... What'd you say?
Compartmentalize.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, which is hard. It's not easy. But I will say a guy that he, had great success with and now has, what's the made amends with? I don't know if that's probably not the right term. Reconciled, that's what I'm looking for. In LeBron. LeBron's one of the best athletes ever, the ability to do that. That no matter what you're hearing or the narrative is or anything going into a game, once the game starts, you're just there. So I think the Mavs are going to win tonight. If they don't win tonight, I am fully confident they're going to win the game 6 at home. but you just don't want more chances for injury, and a full week off would be good for anybody. All right, let's get to your Boston Celtics. Oh, go ahead. Did you want to say something else?
Oh, no. We can get to the Celtics because the word on the street was that you canceled the show last Tuesday to avoid talking about the Celtics sweep getting to the finals. Knew you hated my guys that much. But, so Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are back in their second finals in 3 years. And Jaylen Brown is fresh off of his Eastern Conference MVP. It was the same way the last time, I believe, when they played the Warriors in the finals. But with that said, does Tatum need to be the alpha in order for the Celtics to succeed?
No. So that's I don't think Tatum has to be the best player for the Celtics to win the title. I don't think the Celtics are going to win the title, and the obvious clearest way for them to do it is for Tatum to jump a level in the finals. I don't think that's realistic. I think he can play better than he played in those finals against Golden State. But I think the Celtics are built, and tell me if you agree, Damonza, this is your team. In a way, they are built similarly to, not defensively the same, the 04 Pistons. You don't remember that team, so let me give a little context. The 04 Pistons had, but on any given night, you did not know who their best player was going to be. Like, their best players were Chauncey Billups and Rasheed Wallace. But Tayshaun Prince could be their best guy on a night. Rip Hamilton could be their best guy on a night. Ben Wallace was defense only. I think the Celtics are built in a way that on any given night, Derek White can go off. Jaylen obviously can be the best player on multiple nights. Tatum can be the best player. We forget it, but Kristaps, we'll see. It's what he had looked like. I don't think there's going to be many nights Drew is the best player. He's a better offensive player, obviously, than Ben Wallace was, but he's going to be focused more defensively. So I don't look at the Celtics, Damonza, as a team that, man, if Tatum doesn't go toe-to-toe with Luka, they can't survive. And I think that's good for them because I don't think Tatum can go toe-to-toe with Luka. But that's no shame. There might not be anyone alive that can go toe-to-toe with Luka. And, well, go ahead. You go.
Yeah, so, I mean, just Tatum hasn't really had – I do think that he's kind of owning this thing of, like, he doesn't need to ball out or go crazy or do the Josh Allen thing in order for them to win games. And I think that he's going to do what it is that's necessary. And I just don't think that they've seen that opponent. Obviously, the teams that they've faced to get to this finals run, their best player's been injured each time. I don't think that any of these games have called for Jayson Tatum's A+. So I do think we'll see a different version in these finals. But
no, and he, by the way, he deserves credit. He did have an A+ game in Game 3. I think he had 36 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, and 0 turnovers. He was spectacular. That was one of the 5 or 6 best playoff games he's ever played. He was great in that game. The weird thing about Tatum is the last 2 years in the postseason, he's 31% from 3 on 8 threes a game. He takes threes and confidently and at the volume of a guy who's 37%. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is a huge part of his arsenal, and it just hasn't been the case. And so there are times where I think it can be frustrating because he's 6'9.5". He's built when he came into the league, he was skinny. He is now super strong. It feels like he could be more impactful slashing than he allows himself to be. It does feel like he settles a little too often.
He probably takes like 3 more shots than he should have just taken to gone to the rim a game. I see it a lot.
That's right.
Like, he'll stop and do like a little jumper, and you could just power through.
And here's the thing on that. So that is, sometimes guys do that. Because I remember, this is like one of my earliest Fox memories. I remember watching a Cavs playoff game at some restaurant in Santa Monica with Charlie. The guy who's probably, one of the two people most responsible for my entire career at Fox, and it's still my boss to this day, runs the network now. And LeBron, on back-to-back plays, had driven to the basket and scored. This was the 2016 playoffs. Yeah, it would have been 2016 playoffs. Maybe 2017, doesn't matter. And Charlie turns to me and says, see, why doesn't he do that every play? And me, exasperated, turned to him and said, because it's god-dog exhausting. Because even LeBron at that, and so if people would get frustrated when LeBron would settle for jumpers, but the answer is nobody has 30 drives to the basket in them a game. What's uniquely frustrating about Tatum
LeBron also has to carry a team.
Correct, right, and
tired,
right, but the other thing is LeBron was not shooting 8 threes a game. He was shooting at that point. He was shooting 5, and so it just 3 is the exact right number. It just feels like there's 3 or 4 times a game that Tatum settles when he doesn't need to. Now, where I do think that if you're a Celtics fan, where you have to be the most nervous is this. At the end of games, the Mavs know exactly what they're doing. 1 out of 3 possessions, they are going to let Kyrie try to cook someone. 2 out of 3, they are going to say, Luka, go do it. If you get a favorable matchup, get them on your hip, do your little old man move in the lane or a step back or throw a lob. And the lob numbers, have you seen the lob stats these playoffs? This is the craziest thing ever.
What was that? 20?
So going in, this is as of prior to game 4. So the team with the 3rd most alley-oops, successful alley-oops these playoffs, was the Celtics at 8. The team with the 2nd most was the Thunder at 9. And the team with the most, so 2nd most was 9. The team with the most was the Mavs with 48. 48 successful alley-oops this postseason going into game 4. Luka had 28 by himself. Such a huge part of their offense has been Luka's. Derek Lively is shooting 100% from the field in the conference finals because every single one of them is just a dunk. Right, and that's also why they need Kristaps back. That's what I mean. It's also why they need Kristaps back. But my point is, at the end of games, the Mavs know exactly what they want to do, and the Celtics. This is the downside to the Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, Batman, Robin, Batman situation. It is not crystal clear at the end of games who they're going to. That, you know what I mean? That is the one downside to it. Now, I don't buy into, there's this weird narrative going on, does it matter that Jaylen Brown won conference finals MVP? Was Tatum not happy enough of it? All that to me is BS. Those two guys are clearly good friends. They work really well together. They have had consistent A- success together. The question is, can they finally have an A+? All right, let's move on, Damonza.
So on Tuesday, you tweeted out a graphic comparing Jokic to Giannis. Are you saying that Giannis is the best player after the LeBron era? Is that what you were getting at there?
Well, I think it's certainly a debate. So this, by the way, this graphic is incredibly cool and was made by, and we're going to have a lot more of these types of things. There is, I don't know if he wants me to say his name. I'll ask him, but he signed it as Leo. Leo is not his name. This was made by a guy that just really, really wanted to be a part of what we do on this show and the stuff I do. and is doing this statistical work and graphical art on his own. We have one coming out about Anthony Edwards and age 22 seasons. It's really cool. It's data visualization, and I'll at the very least say his first name. Shout out to Zach for this amazing work. He's also working on a much bigger project related to our top 50 players of all time. That is I don't even want to tease what it is, because when we debut it, it'll blow your mind. But this guy is brilliant and is doing this, on his own time, and I really appreciate it. So, the point that I was trying to make is, I think it's very clear that Giannis had been the best player from, call it, I know LeBron won the title in 2020 and won a Finals MVP. But I think Giannis had been the best player from 19 to 21, and I think Jokic has been the best player from 22 to 24, right? But what if we are talking about 19 to 24, this 6-year stretch? Who has had the better run? They have both been to one Finals and one Finals MVP. They both have been to one other conference Finals. They both have been to round 2 twice. Jokic's been to round 2 3 times, Giannis twice. Giannis has made the playoffs more. He's also played a little bit longer. Their career numbers are very similar, 23-10-5 versus 21-11-7. They're all NBAs. Giannis has 6. Jokic has go ahead.
You said the careers
you go.
Very, very similar, but do you think their paths to the finals were a little bit easier or different than each other?
Well, so here's the thing. I think in general, Jokic has had to face tougher competition in the Western Conference. I think in their championship run, Giannis faced far tougher competition. That Suns team was the best team in the league that year. People thought was going to win the title. They were up 2-0. That Brooklyn team was peak Kevin Durant. And so I'm sorry?
The Nets?
No, Durant was fully healthy. Fully healthy. Kyrie got injured at the end of Game 4, and Harden got injured at the very beginning of the series and then came back. And I misstated the All-NBAs. My apologies. Giannis has 8 All-NBAs. Jokic has 6. Giannis has 2 MVPs. Jokic has 3. I think it's a real debate. I think because of what happened in the postseason this year, that debate opened back up. And here's the other piece of it. Luka is 5 wins away from entering that debate himself. And so the Luka stuff, people don't believe me when Damonza, Luka's made first team All-NBA. He's been in the league 6 years. He's made first team All-NBA 5 times. Steph Curry has 4. Steph Curry has 4 first team All-NBAs. Luka has 5. Luka's individual statistical resume is why I put him where I put him, projecting it on that top 50 list. And if you look at Luka's basketball life, here's what it is. At 16 years old, he was playing in the second best league in the world. At 18 years old, he was the MVP of the second best league in the world and won the championship. At 20 years old, he was the NBA's Rookie of the Year. At 21 years old, he was first team All-NBA and scored 42 in his first career playoff game. At 22 years old, he took the Clippers to 7 games with no other even fringe all-star on his roster, averaging 36, 8, and 8, I think, or something like 36, 10. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Insane. At 23 years old, he beat the number 1 seed en route to the conference finals. At 24 years old, had a weird down team success year. And at 25 years old, he's about to be in the finals. It is an unbelievable run to start
he,
his career. Go ahead.
he had those guys that were kind of dragging him down. I think you said when he was 22. Do you
Yeah.
hold Jokic's 2021 and 2022 exits against him when he was playing with Austin Rivers?
Well, so I don't. So again, there's a difference between holding it against you and acknowledging that it happened. I don't hold it against you, but when Giannis was trying to defend his title and lost in 7 in round 2, he didn't have Chris Middleton. It's, again, we're not holding that against Giannis, but it is a real part of it. And so that was the series that Tatum had the 46 in game 6, and then they won game 7. Chris Middleton did not play 1 second in that series. Yes, games are harder if you don't have your best supporting cast. When LeBron lost in the finals to the Warriors the first time, Kevin Love didn't play 1 minute in that series, and Kyrie got hurt in the game 1 of that series. Like that, those are real factors here. And so it's just part of this. I don't hold it against him, but he has not, in my opinion, because of the loss this year with a fully healthy team, he has not. Giannis's title defense ended in round 2 in game 7 to a team that didn't win the championship. Jokic's title defense ended in round 2 in game 7 to a team that's not going to win the championship. Like, it's just a lot of, it is, whoever you have leading that race, it's close.
I will say that Jokic is a basketball mastermind and Giannis is not. I know the question or the topic here is which player is better. And
yeah, but yeah, that's true. Yeah. That is true. Giannis is also arguably year in, year out the best defensive player in the sport. And Jokic just, was a part of letting Karl Anthony Towns finally, for the first time in his career, have a good playoff series. So it's just, it's all, I mean, that is true. I thought Jokic's defense last postseason was excellent. I thought this postseason wasn't quite as good. And so those are true stories. And so it's all, and I know people talk about Giannis not having a bag. Well, bagless Giannis won a championship by scoring 50 points in game 6 of the finals. And bagless Giannis also, after it looked like he had blown out his knee, responded in those finals. Game 1, he was mediocre when people thought he was going to be out for the year. The rest of the finals, what he did was average, let me give it to you exactly, for games 2 through 6 of the finals, 38, 12, and 5 on 63% shooting. So, Jokic is obviously, there are a lot of things Jokic does better than Giannis. Shoot and pass. There's no question about it. But he's not a more efficient scorer, because Giannis is as efficient of a high volume scorer as we've ever seen. And he's not in the same region defensively. I'm simply saying it is a real argument. All right, let's move on.
So finally, Negro League stats are officially being added into the MLB record books. The Negro League Hall of Fame is in Kansas City and has always been a big part of your life. What does this mean to the sport of baseball and also on a personal level to you?
Okay, so I talked about this a bit on the TV show yesterday, so I don't want to be in reruns here, but fact of the matter is this: I was at the opening of the Negro League Museum when I was a little kid, and I really think it partially helped shape who I am. I really believe that. Like, I found it so captivating. I also was so lucky to become friends with actual friends with the legendary Buck O'Neil, who passed in 2006, but was the voice and the representative of the Negro Leagues worldwide forever, to the point to where my dad, Damonza, when I was a teen, I met Buck when I was 12, I think, is when the museum opened where it is now. It's on 18th and Vine. It's big, beautiful space. And then I would see him every year at the galas and the things or whatever. I became really a big part of that museum. I was one of the only kids who was there all the time. And Bob Kendrick, who's the president of the museum, I've known him forever. And so it's just been a big part. And Buck always remembered me, to the point to where Buck was doing something. My dad was either speaking at an event Buck was at, or Buck was speaking at an event my dad was at. And my dad went over to him and said, "Hi, my name's Louis Wright. I think you know my son." And Buck said, "Oh, you're Nicky's father." And gave him a big, so I love that place, and I love that man, and I think it is real history. And so I talked about it on the TV show, and I'm not going to get fully into all of it right here. What I am going to do, though, is tell an unrelated story, because damn it, I want to. So on the TV show, I talked about the people who are upset about this, and how they're either just acting in bad faith or just racists. Like, it's one of the two. And if you're like, I'm upset about this and I'm not a racist, well, then you're just acting in bad faith. And if you're like, I'm not acting in bad faith and I'm not a racist, okay, that's fine. You're just dumb. Like, you pick the hat you want to be in. You're either dumb, acting in bad faith, or a racist. I don't really care which, whatever. And we could talk about why, again, they're only including the stats that were in officially recognized Negro League games. That's why Josh Gibson is only getting 150-some home runs. And it's like, oh, well, it's not fair because they weren't playing against the best competition. The idea, okay, sure, they weren't playing against all of the best competition, but neither were the white guys in Major League Baseball. You know why? Because the best black players weren't in that league, and we've recognized those stats forever. So all of these arguments are easily dismissed if you really want to have them, but I don't want to have them, and I told people on Twitter not to have them. But then I saw one guy who's in the media who is angry about this and chirping about this and on the wrong side of all these issues, and that guy's name is Mike North. Mike North hosted a radio show in Chicago for 30 years, and then he hosted a talk show on Fox Sports Radio. And I am here to say to Mike North, thank you, Mike, because if not for your truly unlistenably awful radio show, I wouldn't have the job I have now. So a story I've never told. I used to drive in to do mornings in Houston at 5 in the morning, Houston time, to go do the radio show I did there. And the live radio show on Fox Sports Radio was hosted by Mike North and someone else. And I'm trying to remember who it was. If one of the producers can try to Google who Mike North did the radio show with on Fox Sports Radio, say it in my ear if you get it. But when I tell you, it was consistently the worst radio show in America, I mean that. Every morning. But it was the only thing that was like ESPN Radio at that time was basically replaying the audio version of SportsCenter. So it was the only people talking, and it was just what was on my way in. There's no local radio on at that early in the morning, so I heard it every morning. And every morning, oh yeah, Andy Furman. Andy, this is you were a unfair casualty in this. Now maybe you listen, maybe you should have taken control of the steering wheel a bit, but this is not about you, Andy. This is about Mike. And I'm just telling you, it was such a terrible show. And it was such a terrible show, Damonza, that I was like, you know what? I should just have that job. And so I, on my own dime, flew to Los Angeles in the fall of 2015 and set up a meeting with the two guys who run Fox Sports Radio. And I'm not going to say their names, but they're great guys. I just don't want them to be drawn into this because it's a little unfair to them. They're great guys. And I had done some fill-in work for them. And I had just negotiated a new contract in Houston that allowed me to leave mid-contract for a national opportunity. And I walked into their office and I said, and they're like, they were so nice. They're like, Nick, we love you. We have you fill in on our network. And we didn't want it when you said you wanted to come out. We didn't want to say no, but you've come a long way. It's on your own dime. And we don't have any jobs. Like there's no, like you can, if you want a weekend show, we can talk about that, but you're not going to, we could have done that on the phone. I'm like, no. Here's the deal. You guys know and I know your morning show is the worst radio show in the country. And it can't be inexpensive. You have two guys, one of whom has done radio for 30 years. So I'm telling you right now, I don't know what you are paying to do that show, but cut it in half and let me do it. And you will have a show that is 5 times better for half the price. I should have that job. And they were, I think, taken aback, but they also knew I was right. And they said, and I didn't know at the time, that Colin had just agreed to move from ESPN TV and radio to FS1 TV and Fox Sports Radio. And this part of the story I've told before. And they said, well, listen, we're about to have some major things going on with Fox Sports Radio and more of a direct partnership with Fox Sports 1, which is what FS1 was called at the time. So we don't want to launch any new shows without, that show potentially having the real chance of being simulcast on TV. So, if you can get a meeting with the guy who just got hired to run Fox Sports 1, and he he thinks your show could potentially be simulcast, we can have a real conversation about this. So I ended up finagling a meeting with the guy who used to run Fox Sports 1, Jamie Horowitz, and pitched him on, hey, I just want you to sign off on, if I get a radio show, you simulcasting it. Because these guys, I think, will give me a radio show because the radio show they have currently hosted by Mike North is unlistenable. And at the end of that meeting, Jamie said to me, he was like, I just have one question for you. He's like, why have you not asked me to give you a job? And I'm like, well, I don't do TV. And he's like, well, I think you can do TV, buddy. And that ended up being, 10 auditions and 8 months later, this job. So, Mike North, God bless you, man, for consistently having the worst opinions in the world. If not for that, I'm not here. And I had not thought of this guy in years. And then I saw when Major League Baseball announced the Negro League stats were going to be incorporated, that who's there firing off oh my God, the woke mind virus is infiltrating our beloved baseball statistics. I'm like, it's my guy that changed my life. Shout out, buddy. Quick break, right back. What's right? All right, welcome back in What's Right with Nick Wright. We have a brand new segment debuting in the C Block. And I will explain that when we get there. We'll also get to your listener questions and comments. But right now, Damonza, it's time for a game we've done before. Go right ahead.
We are going to be playing Wright-Ins today, and first off, we got our guy Bronny here. It's new animation each time.
Yes, yeah.
So reports are that Bronny has had over 10 workout invites, but has declined most of them. He will visit at least the Suns and the Lakers. Weird move for somebody averaging less than 5 points per game. Bronny is declining these invites because his dad is.
Well,
LeBron
it's not a
James.
one-word answer. I'll say it again.
His dad is LeBron James. That's why he's declining the invites.
So it's partially that. It's partially because Clutch, for good or for bad, does business a little differently than a lot of spots. Rich Paul and Clutch try to steer clients to certain spots where they think is best for them, even if it annoys people and ruffles feathers. Clutch, once upon a time, a few years ago, held their own, basically, NBA combine just for Clutch clients. They do things and make a lot of other agents mad, but they have seemed to be effective for their clients. Now, I also want to clear up some misinformation about Bronny, because Rich said Bronny is not going to take a two-way contract. And a lot of people in the media took that to mean Rich is saying Bronny won't play in the G League. That is not what a two-way contract means. That a two-way contract is a financial designation. It means you are paid half the league minimum, and you can go back and forth between the NBA team and the G League team. If you can be on a regular NBA contract and spend your whole rookie season in the G League. So when Rich said Bronny won't be signing a two-way contract, it does not mean that he won't play in the G League. It does mean he's not going to agree to, it's a financial, basically, right, demand. And now, if people want to argue that a player in Bronny's position is not in position to be making any demands, I understand people saying that and thinking that, but this is a unique situation. The Lakers have the 55th pick of the draft. There are only 58 guys that are going to be taken in this draft. It's a 58-pick draft. If Bronny is there at 55, they are taking him. So when you have that built-in floor, you then can try to, play a little more aggressive. And I don't think LeBron James is, now I'm talking about LeBron, not Bronny, is going to sign with the Suns for the league minimum. I don't think that's going to happen, and that's the only way they could get him. I do think it's on the board that the Suns, because they are not well run, might spend the 22nd pick of the draft on Bronny at hopes LeBron signs with them for the league minimum. And when he doesn't, if and when he doesn't, well, you just spent a first-round pick on this guy. It's a guaranteed contract. You're invested in his success. So people cannot like the fairness or optics or any of this. That's everyone's own. I'm obviously a little conflicted. I have biases here because I don't know Bronny, but I know people very close to him. I also think that while people don't like the way Rich always does business, he's incredibly effective at advocating for his clients in a way better than almost any NBA agent that I can remember, and not worried about hurting people's feelings. The reality is that what they are doing, everything they can to set Bronny up for success, and the bigger investment a team has in him, the more invested that team then is in his success. Do you want to chime in on this, or do you want to move on, Damonza?
No, I mean, I thought it was a little crazy that he was declining invites, but I get, like, they're probably going about it. So, like you said, it's a unique situation, like going about it a different way.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the case for other guys with his draft profile. There's no doubt about it. But he's not other guys with his draft profile. So it just kind of is what it is. All right, next.
So the Pacers were swept in the Eastern Conference Finals by my Celtics, but hey, they had a pretty good run. There's a lot. There's a lot there. So the East had a
Mhm.
bunch of injuries this year, and some young teams are ready to take the leap. Boston's largest future threat in the East is.
I think a healthy Giannis is the answer. I mean, Giannis didn't play in the playoffs this year, and last year, got hurt in the playoffs, and it wasn't the same guy. I think the answer is a healthy Giannis. If Philly, if they were to get LeBron, is an interesting one, and while I would like that to happen, I don't think it's going to. Philly's got all this cap space, so we got to see. I don't look at the Pacers as like, oh, the Pacers, they're the Thunder of the West, of the East. I don't look at them like that at all, and I don't think Halliburton is close to the player Shea is. So a healthy Giannis or the Knicks if they add another real piece. I respect what the Knicks have done, but they don't, as good as Jalen is, they are still a piece away. All right, next.
Caitlin Clark dropped a career-high 30 points versus LA, but it came in another loss. So the Fever are now 1-7 despite Clark being the league's 13th highest scorer after her first few games. Clark's adjusted year one expectations are.
For me, the same as that they were. That she will be an all-star caliber player, that by the end of the year, she will be playing at the level of one of the 10 best players in the league. I think that's going to happen. Now, I am not going to pretend as if I have watched the Fever closely enough to talk about why they're 1-7, what their biggest issues are. I know the number one overall pick from last year, who's also on the Fever because they had the number one pick back-to-back years, Aaliyah Boston, after being awesome last season, had struggled considerably. But Caitlin has been fine, guys. Caitlin has been the only other rookie averaging more than 7 points a game is Angel. Like Angel's shooting like 35% as a big. Caitlin is playing. Does she look like the best player in the league? No. I was as high on Caitlin as anybody. I didn't think she was going to come in and be better than Asia Wilson. I didn't think she was going to come in and be better than the very best player in the WNBA. Does she look like she is on track to being one day the best player in the league? I think so. Does she look like she is already one of the better players in the league? I think so. The team stinks. Next.
So the 76ers only have 3 players rostered for next year and a ton of cap space. They have accumulated quite the wish list with it seems like they're interested in Paul George, LeBron, or even trading for Jimmy Butler again. Butler's feelings on a Philadelphia return would be.
Oh, I think that he would love it. Listen, Jimmy Butler wears out his welcome. I love Jimmy, but the Heat seem annoyed with him. Everywhere gets sick of Jimmy. Jimmy's a lot to deal with, and now he's getting older and he's not as available. I think that the Sixers obviously targeting LeBron would be amazing. I don't think it is guaranteed LeBron is going back to the Lakers, but I think it is likely he's going, better than 85% he's going back to the Lakers. Paul George would be a great fit on that team. Perfect fit. And they've got the money, and so we'll see if Paul George wants to leave the Clippers. All right, let's go to...
There's obviously still some hard feelings there with the whole Tobias Harris over me thing.
Yeah, but again, that was a different front office. When it's a different coach and a different front office, and the only player who's still there is Embiid, and Embiid has been writing you love letters for years, like, you know what I mean? So the fans loved him, Embiid loved him, and the guys who picked Tobias Harris over him are all gone. So that, so it's not quite, to me, it wouldn't make sense. Like, what are you mad at? The Liberty Bell? Like, it's all different. You're mad at the arena? All right, next.
So the Vikings were allegedly trying to trade up to draft Malik Neighbors with the plan to trade Justin Jefferson, who was looking for a record contract extension. The next team Justin Jefferson will play for will be?
I think he's going to keep playing for the Vikings, but this was an underrated story. That the Vikings, were open to potentially trading Justin Jefferson, and they seem to be legitimately you know,
Wouldn't that kind of
anxious
frustrate
about
Justin
giving.
Jefferson though?
Yeah, I mean, but the way to fix it is, listen, Justin Jefferson's going to get $35 million a year as a wide receiver. It's what's going to happen. Now, you can argue that's not smart money, but it's what's going to happen. The Vikings are going to have to pay it. They just drafted their quarterback. They you know what I mean? I don't know why they haven't paid it already, but that's what's going to end up happening. All right, I hear we have a bonus one.
Yeah, so Nick Wright is doing blank, if not for the great Mike North.
I'm right now doing a show, probably a radio show only on ESPN Radio. That's what I think. I think that if not for those dominoes, I think what would have happened would have been this. I would have found out that Colin was leaving ESPN when everyone else did, and that ESPN Radio was doing a reshuffling, and that, Le Batard and, Bomani, and then Le Batard and then Bomani, I don't remember the order, were going to take over that time slot, and there was a reordering there. And I think I would have ended up, honestly, Damonza, I think we all would have ended up moving probably to Bristol, Connecticut, and I would have been doing like nights on ESPN Radio, and, eventually parlayed that into a bigger time slot on the radio. I really believe that. I had never, when I say I had never planned on doing TV, guys, when I was in college at Syracuse, the broadcast journalism major, the vast majority of it is TV stuff. And I remember saying, like, in one of my TV classes, they were like, so that, we're going to learn to read off the prompter. And I totally blew it off. And the professor was kind of annoyed with me because they're like, we know you're into broadcasting. Like, this is, we know this is what you want to do. Yeah. And I just remember saying to him, like, I'm never going to be on TV. I don't want to be on TV. I'm not going to be on TV. This is kind of a waste of my time. Like, and by the way, that's a lesson for young people out there, because to this day, I'm not good reading. Now, luckily for my job, I don't really ever have to read off a prompter, but sometimes I do. And you never know where things are going to take you. But yeah, I would have just kept doing you know what I mean? Kept doing radio. And so, yeah.
Did you say that you ended up loving TV more than radio? Like, do you enjoy doing TV more?
Well, it's so different. I don't think I love it more. I think that, listen, since I've been doing the TV show, I either have had the radio show, because remember, then I did do a radio show for 2 years, maybe longer, on Mad Dog. Was it 3 years, 2 years? I don't remember how long, at nights. And now I do this, which is like a radio show to me. This is way closer to a radio show than a TV show. And so I love the cool thing about radio is the audience gets to know you as a human being. They get to know whatever you want to share of your personal life and your family. You can have long form discussions, right? And so all of that's cool. Cool thing about TV is you get to be famous and they pay you a lot of money. And so, like, there's a I mean, it just and you can, so there's give and take to all of it. But I don't think intellectually I think that and again, I have never had more fun. The most fun I've ever had in my career doing my show is the number one draft pick is First Things First right now with Brew and Wilds. And the number 2 draft pick is What's Right with Nick Wright, when I was on in the afternoons in Kansas City with Carmen, Carrington, and Jared Carter, the producer. You know what I mean? Like that crew. Yeah. So that was so like those are the 2 most fun I've ever had. And so I love what I'm doing. I was joking about it just being about the accoutrement that come along with TV, but it's just different. It's different in being like, hey, I'm going to give a 30-minute accoutrement, like things that go along with something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Like added benefits is, I guess, the word that is what it would mean. But they're just very, very different animals. And I would say to anybody that wants to do anything in media, sports media in particular, there is no better training than solo radio. You're out there with just your words. You've got to create compelling, long-form thoughts and arguments with just your words. And if you can successfully do a listenable, much less captivating radio show, you can do almost anything in media, in my opinion. A brand new segment involving motorsports next, plus listener questions. What's right? All right, welcome back in. What's right with Nick Wright? Okay, so like a year ago, Damonza, maybe longer, the producers, mostly I think Kara, tried to get me to start incorporating F1 into the show. That Netflix show, was it Drive to Survive or Drive for Five or I don't know. I haven't watched it. I'm gonna watch it though now. Had taken the world by storm. Everybody loved. People were super into F1. It was getting bigger ratings, and I simply said, I don't know anything about it, and I don't watch it. And I also kind of thought it would go away, but it's not going away. People like it, and so I was like, okay, but if I can't talk about it, and Damonza can't talk about it, and Diora, when she's here, she can't talk about it, what are we going to do? Little did I know that the first, I don't know if you know this about me, the first infant I ever held, my goddaughter Sierra, who is one of the only people still in my life that I've known longer than I've known you, that I've known her entire life, and she is now not much longer than I've known you, but she's 19. You know what I mean? So a little bit, a few years longer. So my goddaughter, and I should be fair because she'll probably see this. I don't think technically she's my goddaughter, but she's my goddaughter. Sierra Fidel, she is an aspiring sports journalist and a huge F1 fan. So here is what we are going to do. There are races evidently every couple of weeks. They're not every week. But on Thursday shows before a race, she's going to have sent in an F1 minute. And on Tuesday shows after a race, she's going to give us an F1 recap. Also, I am whatever coaching or critiquing I have on her, an aspiring 19-year-old broadcaster, is only going to come after the clips air. So, every time she sends something in, it's what's getting aired. This is the best training and practice for her possible. And so the audience will get to see her evolution and growth as a broadcaster. Now, it turns out there is not a race this weekend. But so what I thought made sense was for those of us that haven't been following or don't know anything about it, and eventually in the summer we might want something to gamble on, which is another benefit from this, that we could learn a little bit and do something with it. So what Sierra, our F1 correspondent, is doing in her debut video is giving us, I told her I needed a 90-second recap of the season. Now, that's not an easy task, but so I'm going into this blind, as are you. This is catching us up on the 2024 Formula One season in 90 seconds or less by our F1 correspondent, the lovely and talented Sierra Fidel. Take it away.
Since the 2024 Formula One season has already started, we have 8 out of the 24 Grand Prix under our belts already, but out of these 8 races, Max Verstappen has won all but 3 because Max Verstappen is the world champion and has been since 2021. Now, these 3 races that he hasn't won have been won by the Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz in Australia, and then the second is by Lando Norris at McLaren. He won his maiden win in Miami, and then the third is the other Ferrari driver, Charles Leclerc, who won for the first time in Monaco as his home race. In the duration of an F1 season, we have 2 championships happening simultaneously. We have the Drivers' Championship for the drivers, obviously, and then we have the Constructors' Championship, which is for the teams. Now, after a Grand Prix weekend, a set of points are rewarded to the teams and the drivers based on their performance. Now, the current stats for the Drivers' Championship is, of course, Max Verstappen leading with 169 points, and then Charles Leclerc with 138, Lando Norris with 113, and Carlos Sainz with 108 points. Now for the Constructors' Championship, we have Red Bull Racing, of course, leading with 276 points, and then we have Ferrari with 252. Third place is for McLaren with 184, and then fourth place is Mercedes with 96. Now these are just the top 4 in both the drivers and the constructors, but they go all the way to the entire grid.
There it is, our first ever F1 minute. I think I'm officially now a Carlos Sainz guy. I don't know who he is, but I like the cut of his jib. It sounds like he won a race. I mean, Verstappen just wins every year and wins every race. That's no fun. I'm going to be a Carlos Sainz guy. I don't know where the next race is or when it is, but we'll hear from it again. What'd you think? What'd you think, Damonza?
No, I thought that was awesome. She did great.
Yeah.
And that's like her
Damonza
first
grew up with, that's her first time doing it for us. And that was her first, I don't know if it was her first take, but she sent me one video. I was like, do whatever you want to do, but send me one video. And Karen Daniel, who seemed to know about F1, said she did a good job. Here's the other thing I'm going to tell you guys. I'm not fact-checking these. That could have all been wrong. I have no idea. I'm going to need you guys to be our ombudsman, because in the meantime, I know nothing about it. And so I hope it's accurate, but I know nothing about it. All right, Damonza, quickly, let's do some questions here.
We love you, CC. Justin Field probably asks, why am I doing running back drills? We think we're going to show the video for those watching on YouTube.
So I'm not going to kill him for this. I think that's smart. See. Here's the thing. I think that's smart because he's doing quarterback drills as well, but running's a big part of his game.
Look at it outside of
yeah, well, that part's true.
Just like as
that part's
quarterback, it's like, what are we doing?
No, that part's true. All right, next.
Jack Fisher asks, is the Thunder ceiling around what the Celtics are now? A lot of really good players, but nobody who is truly great, top 15 ever. Or do you think SGA can be that guy?
Well, listen, I don't think SGA can be top 15 ever. But can SGA be a consistent frontline MVP candidate in the way Tatum hasn't been? I'll be honest, I don't think so, but everyone else does. I think SGA is exactly in that Tatum tier of like not actually consistent top 5 best player in the league, but right in that 6, 7, 8 range. But the Thunder have so many assets, and Chet's good, and Jalen Williams is good, and They have a smart coach and a smart front office. So I don't know what this is, they're just getting started. The weird thing is SGA is older than you think. Tatum's 26, SGA's 25, Luka's 25. SGA, I found that out on this show. I remember you guys corrected me that SGA is older than Luka, and I couldn't believe it. All right, next.
Austin Tapp, is this the worst long-term situation? Is this the worst long-term situation for the Celtics to make the finals, Eastern Conference Finals every year? Never get over the hump due to coaching, and then never have a reason to fire Mazzulla.
Well, so listen, I think we're getting ahead of yourself there. I'm not impressed consistently by Mazzulla. Let's see how he does in these finals. You're obviously not going to fire him if they lose in the finals. But I think that depending on how these finals go, a lot of guys, like if the Celtics get this close again, I think it is very important for the Celtics. Obviously, if they win the championship, nothing matters. But if they don't win, it's very important for this to be a great series. What can't happen for the Celtics is for them to roll through the injured Eastern Conference and then get whacked by a team a lot of people think was maybe the 4th or 5th best in the West this year. That can't happen. Next.
Yep. Carl Weiser asked, why hasn't the media killed Jokic for his playoff exit? He's supposed to be the best player in the league, and any other superstar or best player would have been cooked.
So I don't think that's really true. I think you only would get cooked if they had this exit because he played so poorly. I thought Jokic in the second round was overall an A-. I thought games 4 and 5, he was a quadruple plus. He obviously wasn't great in the opening 2 games, and I don't put the last 2 games on him, but he wasn't, getting beat by 50 in game 6 and then blowing a 20-point lead in game 7. It's got to fall on him a bit. Again, I feel similar to how I felt about Giannis when he lost in round 2. It's like it wasn't on him, so I don't think he needs to get killed for it. The only guy who ever would get, by the way, Steph didn't get killed when he lost as the defending champ in round 2 last year and threw the ball away. The only guy who ever gets killed for this stuff is LeBron. Everybody else mostly gets passes unless it happens again and again and again. All right, next.
Buffy Lucky Cho, please. I know you said there's no chance in the 3-0 comeback, but if it was to happen, who would you pick for the finals?
Oh, I mean, if Minnesota won 4, I would say I think Minnesota would be out of gas. But also that would mean they were down 3-2 against the defending champs and won, and then the first team ever to come back from down 3-0 to win. It'd be hard to pick against them.
They get more time to rest between the next series than they got to rest with Dallas.
Yeah, right, and during the series. But they're not going to come back. They're not going to come back to win it. All right, let's go to Sam Davison's question, Damonza.
Sam Davison said, can't believe PJ Washington does this podcast with Nick on a game day.
Do you think you look like PJ Washington?
No, I don't see it. I hear that one.
You've heard it before?
Yeah. I hear it at work a little bit. Hear it
at work
from Maddie. Yeah, I've heard it from but I hear Jordan Poole the most. But yeah.
Well, the Jordan Poole thing I do see, but I also think that's because I used to think you guys, when he was with the Warriors, played similar styles of basketball. So, I didn't know if that was polluting my, polluting my brain. And that, again, Warriors Jordan Poole was peak Jordan Poole. I'm not talking about Wizards Jordan Poole, goofy Jordan Poole.
His game isn't as refined as mine, but yeah. I get what you're saying.
What a great way to end the pod. That's perfect. All right, Damonza, call me later. Great job, everyone. Great job to the internet people. I mean, this was flawless.
We were rolling.
Talk to you guys on Tuesday. Great job, Cece, as well. What's right? Hey, thanks for watching. If you're still here, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the bell so you can be notified when we have new episodes. After you've done that, one more favor, go to your favorite audio platform of choice and subscribe there as well. Don't forget, We're live every Tuesday and Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern-ish. 10:35, 10:40, it sometimes changes, but that's why you hit the bell. You hit the bell so you're notified. You subscribe so we can get to 200,000 followers. We're right around 150,000. We'd love to get to 200,000, get Damonza another plaque. So like, subscribe, rate, send a rating too. Do all that cool stuff. Thanks, guys.